Welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Almada from Lacey PD in Washington. He has 35 years experience in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief Almada. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paige. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. No, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You had said a few things to me offline that really kind of stuck with me and some things I haven't heard before. So I was hoping that maybe we could start with a little bit of background for those who don't know who you are. 35 years ago, you started in this career. What have those 35 years looked like for you so far?
Yeah. 2 minutes or less describe the universe, right? So, let's see. So started in 1990 with the Santa Monica Police Department. I did about 29 years down there. Uh, I started out as a police cadet, which is basically a college internship type deal. And then I became a police officer and did that for several years. And I was a sergeant for 17 years and then moved up to lieutenant, ended up retiring as a captain. I failed retirement. I retired for about a week and then came up to the city of Lacey as the deputy chief. And about 6 months after that, became the interim chief. A year after that, became the permanent chief. And I've been doing that ever since. So yeah, most of my career has been in small teams, whether it was a patrol team or special enforcement team. I spent about a third of my career working plainclothes and undercover capacity, a lot of narcotics investigations, arson investigations, robbery homicide unit type stuff. I've been an emergency manager for the city of Santa Monica. So a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different things. Along the way, got a lot of good education. Uh, I started out with a finance degree in business, just because I thought it was interesting. And it's amazing how much criminal enterprises have a lot of financial components, so it actually works really well. Later on, I got my master's degree in management, and uh, and then later on, I had the opportunity to get a certificate in leadership from the Drucker Institute and through the Executive Leadership Institute through the state of California. So lots of good stuff, lots of opportunities along the way to learn things from the experts along the way, and also through the school of hard knocks, making mistakes and learning from those mistakes and trying to help others learn from my mistakes and experiences. And so that's what kind of brought me to here today.
I love that statement, the school of hard knocks, and learning from things that you do really well, but also things that maybe you don't do really well and trying to grow and improve from there. I wanted to ask you because I've had other chiefs from Washington, obviously on this podcast, but there are a handful of you that came from Santa Monica that are now in leadership or chief positions in Washington. Is that correct?
Yes.
What is it about you guys coming from Santa Monica to Washington? Is it just coincidence or how did that pan out?
So yeah, I didn't start out wanting to be a chief. In full full candor. Um, no, in the environment that we had, so the city of Santa Monica is a very active city. It's surrounded on three sides by the city of Los Angeles, so it has those influences. It has the Santa Monica Pier. It has 85,000 residents plus, but a daytime population of anywhere from 200,000 to half a million to on some days a million people in that little 8.3 square miles.
Wow.
And during special events and things. So you get a lot of opportunity to have a lot of interactions and gain a lot of experience very quickly. Like I said, and we were really encouraged to make decisions, fail forward, learn from those failures, learn from those mistakes, and then incorporate that knowledge and continue to take appropriate risk and keep expanding and pressing the boundaries to accomplish our mission. And I developed a really strong mission focus and I kind of feel that's kind of helps to develop leadership opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And so my peer group, there's Wendell Sugarlow, who's the chief of Bellevue, and there's Chief Darrell Lowe, who's the chief of Redmond. But also our peer group, we have a couple of chiefs down in California. We have the chief of El Segundo and the chief of Point Hueneme are also police chiefs that came. That's really how my peer group. It's about five or six of us now that have come through and kind of rose this level through various paths and reasons. And it was all I really think is because one, a lot of opportunity to learn police work and do different things in leadership, and also the willingness to take appropriate risk.
Yeah. I really like, it goes back to what you said before of like failing forward and development. How can you continue to develop yourself over time? I know that you said that you were in a lot of different roles throughout your career. What was your favorite?
Well, by and large, working undercover was the best.
Mhm.
Whether it was as case handling agent, as the investigating officer, or working undercover, there's nothing better than catching the guys who think they can't get caught.
Mm.
Right? They wouldn't get picked up on a radio call. They wouldn't get picked up on a traffic stop. The only way you're going to catch them is through a focused investigation. And the best thing is when you're sitting there talking to them and they're saying, "Oh, the cops will never catch me." Oh, really? Tell me about that. It's crazy. Yeah, I want to be like you, right? And then next thing you know, they're getting hooked up, and you're the guy sitting across from in court, telling how smart he thought he was to a jury. So that's really the best part.
And then you said you never wanted to be a chief, but here you are.
That
So,
really wasn't in my plans. No.
so here you are. And you entered into this position kind of in the middle of COVID, right? Kind of
Yep.
civil unrest, George Floyd. We know everything that happened during that time.
Yep.
What was that like? So, not really ever wanting to be a chief and then entering into what is arguably maybe one of the most challenging times in recent history to be a chief. What was that like?
Well, when I came to Washington, the city of Lacey, I was supposed to be the deputy chief, right? Which is all operations based, internal, not a lot of exterior, public facing type stuff. It really was, I came up with ideas, I put them on the chief's desk and walked away. It was great. I love being number two. Number two is a great job, right? And I enjoyed it. I did it for 6 months, and I really liked that my chief that brought me up. Unfortunately, he got ill at the beginning of COVID before we even knew what COVID was.
Mm.
And originally kind of thought I'd go on 1 or 2 months sabbatical, medical sabbatical, and come back. But then all of a sudden, his doctor said, "No, you got to retire, or else your longevity is just not going to be anything. You're going to die." And
Yeah.
so I met him literally in a parking lot here in Lacey because he couldn't be indoors with people because he didn't want to get germs. He met me in a parking lot on a Tuesday. He says, "I'm retiring Thursday, and I'm recommending you to be the interim chief." And I'm like, "I've been here 6 months. What are you talking about?" And it's like, "You're the guy." Like, okay. And so he drove off and sat in my car for a minute. And I'm like, all right, got to move forward. And then looking at where the Lacey Police Department really was at that point, they had a long-term internal chief that left. Uh, there were just some strife in the department when he left. Then they brought in the chief that hired me, who was there for about a year, started making some changes, kind of started transitioning the department from a small town police department to a mid-sized town or city police department. And then and then I came along as the deputy chief to kind of reinforce those policies and in full, full. He came from Santa Monica,
Okay.
right? So we knew each other. We'd operated together. We knew we had a plan together. And so, and not that we always agreed. That's very true. We didn't always agree, but he knew enough that uh, I'd have good ideas. We'd have a good thought process. And in the day when he made a decision, I'd follow that decision.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and it was a valid process. I wasn't just picked because I was his buddy. That certainly wasn't the case. Okay, gotta put that out there.
That's
Um,
clear.
but so from my standpoint is I wanted stability in the organization. You had COVID coming in, right? Very disruptive. There was a lot of information about, oh, everybody's got to get vaccinated. Officers should be vaccinated. We should compel our employees to be vaccinated or we got to let them go. That was going on everywhere. And I said, time out. Whoa, 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 wait on. Hold on here. We give our we give our employees great medical benefits. This is a medical decision. How about we let them consult with their primary care provider and they come up with the best plan that's for them,
Yeah.
whether that vaccine is good for them or not. Why would I get involved? I'm the chief of police. I'm not their medical doctor. Everyone's got tons of medical issues and other things and backgrounds and aches and pains and God knows what else, right? Who am I to make that just blanket decision for everybody? It's not I don't think that's my role. So I argued quite vehemently against different folks outside the department, and I got my way, frankly. That I wasn't going to inflict that on my people. I wasn't going to compel it. If they wanted to get it, great. It wasn't something I was going to get involved with. All
Yeah.
I asked for my employees was, hey, every day before you come into work during COVID, check yourself. If you feel symptoms, don't come to work,
Yep.
right? Stay home, don't infect the station. We went through 2 lockdowns at the station during the entire time of COVID, of about 24 months. where we shut down the station for about a week, so because we had an outbreak. We cleaned the station. We called those Operation Ghost Town, where we'd come through, we cleaned the station. Now, understand, my station was built back in 1985, so it wasn't that much station to clean because we're very tight here. Station's designed for about 25 people, and I've got almost 100 people on the station currently,
Wow.
which is why we're running another station, or we're building another station, but I'll get into that in a little bit later. But anyway, so that was COVID. And then following COVID was George Floyd, or actually in the middle of COVID was George Floyd. And that brought about a really a sea change in the way law enforcement was seen in the state of Washington and new legislation. And it really restricted some of the things we can do. And so I wanted to make sure that our policies and our procedures did not set our officers up for failure. I would not put them in a situation where they weren't allowed to act,
Mm.
right? Because we were really, really streamlined and restricted in what we could do according to the legislature. Well, that lasted for about a year, and they realized that's a problem. It's not really working. Crime's taken off. And so we brought back to a better norm. And constantly, we're teaching our officers, providing training to our officers on this, which is kind of the big thing about Lacey. And what sets us apart is we do so much training. Our officers work basically a 15-day a month schedule, hybrid schedule. And one of those 15 days, we take them out of the field. We do the whole day of training, 10.7 hours of training,
Mm.
and it's tactical, it's legal, it's everything, right? So we make sure we cover all the important things. In the state of Washington, the requirement is to have 24 hours of training per year per officer, and we offer many times that to our officers to make sure that they have the best and most accurate information and can work professionally.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I can only imagine how challenging that must have been. And it feels like it was so far away, like so long ago, but I know that there's still kind of this ripple effect that's still maybe happening today. And I wanted to dive into wellness a little bit because I know that this career is incredibly stressful as it is. And then you had COVID on top of it and the ripple effects of that. And you had said to me when we talked offline, and this was really impactful to me because we know that longevity is important, right? And we want to make sure that we're supporting the longevity of everybody. But there's a statistic going around about how long officers tend to last or how long law enforcement professionals tend to last. And you said to me, statistically, you should be dead. And I was like,
Yep.
whoa, like that like really hit me because I'm like, wow, like we're talking about wellness and we're talking about longevity and how can we support it? But still the statistics are showing such a young age as like statistically you should not be here anymore. When did you first hear that statistic? Because I think when we talked offline, you had said that it was almost like you signed up for that. Like you just were under the understanding that like, yeah, I'm going to have a shorter life.
Yeah, when I started, it was kind of out there that, hey, guess what? You're gonna work a 20, most police careers are about 7 years, right? If you go the full tilt, right, you do a 25-year career, which is considered normal, 20, 25 years, and you retire. And down in California, you can generally retire about age 50. You'll have 7, maybe 10 years post that before you die because the job is so tough on you.
Yeah.
And between the odd hours, the shift work, the stressful nature of the work, the poor sleep hygiene, nutrition's terrible, lack of time to work out. If you smoke, it's worse, obviously. If you drink, it's worse, obviously. If you engage in risky behaviors, it's worse, obviously.
Mhm.
So, I mean, all that plays into that stat where it's basically, right now the stat is most uniform law enforcement, you live to 57. That's kind of the average. Anything beyond that's kind of a bonus. And where I get that stat from is if when you listen to Craig Bettis, who does Sigma Tactical Health,
Mhm.
which really emphasizes first responders in identifying coronary disease in first responders, because we're special here, and as law enforcement and firefighters, we present coronary disease differently than the general public. And so the general guidelines and cholesterol screenings don't exactly always work on us. So they have to do different types of scans, they have to do different type of blood work. And so they really drill in on trying to identify coronary disease and other factors in first responders. And so And they reinforced the 57-year mark, by the way.
Yeah.
When you're young and you're doing this stuff and you're chasing bad guys, it's like I'm gonna live forever. It's gonna be great. I can drive fast. I can do all sorts of stuff, and I'm gonna live forever and take risk, which is not appropriate risk, but you're kind of putting yourself out there too far. As you go along your career, you realize there's a certain appropriate amount of risk, and there's stuff that's just foolhardy, and you have to make sure you're not falling into that foolhardy range of risk taking, and you have to be taking care of yourself. When I was working undercover at one point, I was a sergeant of a narcotics unit. I got to be about 40 pounds overweight.
Mm.
Uh, we were working really hard, had a hard-driven team, very type A, high production, doing great work, but no sleep. Either you were on surveillance, putting a case together, booking an evidence, or you were in court. That was, and if you were lucky, you got a little bit of time off for uh, for sleeping. And generally, it was a little bit here, a little bit there. It was such a high performing team. I knew I could drive them for about 6 weeks, and then we'd have to go down for 2 weeks just so everybody could kind of get their lives back in order and get back to normal. Because stress would start to build after 6 weeks, because that we could only maintain that op tempo for so long. And so that really kind of turned the light bulb on for me, and I kind of started looking at longevity for officers. Um, and what it's come to really is identifying all the inflammation related diseases,
Mm.
right? And inflammation's the worst thing ever, and that's what's causing our problems apparently. And at least that's what I've been told and what I've been led to believe. Whether it's, you know, cholesterol, diabetes, fatty liver, metabolic syndrome, which is the combination of all those things. Um, those are what impact our ability for longevity. And when you start looking at longevity, the better you're able to control the inflammation causal factors, the longer you'll live. And stress management is a big part of that. Sleep management is a big part of that. Nutrition is a big part of that. Healthy relationships is a big part of that. Being able to unplug and not do something besides your work, which I had a real big problem with. Frankly, I had a really strong work ethic, and that's how I got my dopamine by being productive and being successful. And I had to kind of realign that as I've gotten older to realize that, you can't just thrive on adrenaline and positive reinforcement for doing good work. You've got to be a good husband too. You got to be a good father too. You got to be a good friend uh, in your community. So those are those kind of things that you learn along the way. You try to pass on to the officers now in my current role and try to make sure that they have long, productive retirements. That's my
Yeah.
big goal. I want them to be healthy in their retirement, healthy in their retirement. I want them to be happy in their retirement. So if I can achieve those things, that's a win.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because one of the things that's come up a lot recently is, when we talk about longevity, I think a lot of times it's like just living longer. And like, yes, we want everyone to live longer. Like 57's way too young, but like we want you to live well. It's in you saying that, like, I want you to be happy, healthy, like I want you to feel good in your retirement. Like that's the goal. It's not just surviving through it. It's like, how can we set the standard and like raise that bar so that you're thriving and you feel good and you can still enjoy your life into your retirement and you can be there with your family or, go fishing or go on vacation or run around with your grandkids or whatever it is, and you're not just like struggling through that end part of your life. I'm really happy that you also talked about cardiovascular health. I think that that is something that is just now starting to kind of um, bubble to the surface. And there's more conversations about this because historically, everything was about suicide and suicide prevention, which is very important. But the statistics were always saying that's the number one reason for death in law enforcement, right?
That's the most acute cause of death.
Yeah.
There's the hidden cause of death that we're talking about, right?
Yep.
It's that longevity factor. Like people they're dying much sooner than they should die because they're not attending to the things we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have a friend who works in this space, and I've learned a lot from him. He owns a nonprofit. He was a SWAT guy in his 20s, super fit. And he had a cardiovascular event that he lived to be able to, tell. But he had died for several minutes
Oh my gosh.
and came back. And he now, owns this nonprofit where he does education and helps equip law enforcement with AEDs. And, he's really passionate about this space. And I learned a lot about that through him and like really understanding. And everything that you said before is so spot on of like what impacts that, right? Like you kind of went down the list of nutrition and sleep and stress, and even sitting for long periods of time increases your risk of a cardiac event by like 150%. So if you're always in your squad car behind the desk, and then you go home and you sit on the couch and, you live this like sedentary lifestyle. And so I think the more that we can draw awareness around all of those things, the better, just so that now, because, if you don't know, you don't know. And if you have the awareness about it, then you can start educating yourself a little bit more and then start taking action and being able to identify those early warning signs through, screenings. And I know you talked about that earlier, and identifying that specific marker that you're looking for, right? Because, like you said, it is maybe more unique than the general public. And so, working with someone who understands what that is so that you can identify these things early and then have that longevity in your life.
Yeah, I just trying to get folks to understand even the basics, right? How you get in and out of a police car with all the gear you're wearing can really affect whether you have lower back pain later on in life, and neck pain later on in life. Make sure your ergonomics. I mean, just silly stuff like ergonomics. We never considered that back when I started. Ergonomics. Shut up,
Yeah.
get in the police car. Drive, kid. Right? There was well, the seat isn't right. Well, that's your problem, right? It's where I want it. Okay, boss. And if the FTO ran the car, or your senior partner ran the car, and you just drove and did what you had to do, right? But yeah, now we have ergonomics. We have people, how do you get in and out of the car properly? How do you lift a suspect properly without blowing out your back? We have all sorts of different tools to do that now, and because we realize it's these repetitive functions that we do almost daily have to have a long impact as well, right? In
Right.
addition to all the good things we can do as far as preventative measures, it's also just using the right tools and techniques so that we have the best outcomes later on. So
Yeah.
we're all not all beaten down with bad shoulders and bad knees and bad lower backs. And, hey, I live an extra 10, 20 years, say past the 57, great. But if you can't enjoy it, if you can't go do what you want to do, even that just means living a normal life of getting out of the house, what's the point, right? So, I mean, you really, really, really want to be productive and be happy, have those outside interests, have those good relationships, and have that plan for when you're not a cop anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it starts with having the conversations and more of the proactive measures. And I think the conversation needs to change from like, you are going to end up this way, you are going to end up broken. I'm going to say that in quotes, like your back's going to hurt, your shoulder, like all these things are inevitable, to like, hey, those things can happen if you don't do these things. If we don't take those preventative measures to set you up for success, then yeah, probably that thing might happen. You might have a bad back or a bad knee or shoulder from, getting in and out, or, all the things that we talked about. Like you might have those things. But if we do these things, then we are reducing that risk significantly. And then when you get to the end of it, you're going to feel a lot better and you're going to be able to have as many years in retirement as you had on the career, hopefully. One of the things that you had said earlier, and I wanted to kind of touch on this because I think it goes back to kind of that awareness piece of it, is you said kind of risky behavior and how that is going to exasperate things. And I wanted to get your insights on maybe some of the coping mechanisms that you are seeing that have been detrimental to wellness long term.
So wellness back in the 80s and 90s was expressed rather crudely in the academy. Basically, as three categories of things that would get you into trouble as an officer and lead to your abrupt dismissal from law enforcement. The first one was booze, right? Too much alcohol was getting a lot of people in trouble. If you did binge drinking, if you drank when it was inappropriate, if you saw, how do you get to sleep at night? You drink after a long shift. That's just a losing. It's a losing equation. It's not going to work out well for you. First of all, it's bad quality sleep. Second of all, it's going to destroy your body
Yep.
and creates the addiction cycle and all those things. So They said, beware of booze, right? That was number one. The second one, it was a B for a car. It was a Buick. I know no one knows what Buicks are. They're rare these days, but the idea was cars, right? Driving over your head, but driving too fast, taking risks, whether on duty or off duty, will get you into trouble. Buying a car you couldn't afford, right? That was also kind of part of it too. Is like, hey, don't be done with your money. Don't buy the big flashy things as soon as you get, as soon as you get this big paycheck now as a cop, that you've never handled money like this before. Now, money's a responsibility, right? It's not just something to go buy a bunch of toys with that are, going to be broken down or whatever, or you're going to do something ridiculous with. It's just be very careful about that. And the last one was um, had to do with relationships is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to get involved in bad relationships. You want to be very careful with where you chose to spend your time in those relationships. You wanted that to be a positive building relationship and not one that drove you in the other direction, or meeting people on duty and dating people on duty and things like that. That just doesn't end well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have to learn that lesson over and over and over again, unfortunately. And unfortunately, that's where so those are kind of the three things that would get them in trouble. And that's how it was described back then. Now, with today's group of candidates, if I tell them, hey, you're only going to live for maybe 5 to 10 years past your retirement, and you're going to have inflammation issues, and you're going to have some kind of structural issue with your body, with their knee or shoulder or back, they would never come and do this job. They would never do that. No, no. That's why, not only is it the right thing to do, it's also you have to do it, or else no one's going to be a police officer anymore. So we have to make sure we have these programs to show that, hey, you're going to have an exciting career. We're going to give you an exciting career. It's going to be a worthwhile career where you're going to be involved in service, which is the best thing ever, which is I love to celebrate service because that's why we're here. And then after that, you'll be able to, tell war stories and all that when you're retired and do other stuff totally unrelated to law enforcement. And you'll be completely able to do that. Plus, you'll have all the knowledge you acquired along the way and all the life experience. So that's the sales pitch we give now. And in order to do that, we do a number of things to make sure that it's not just a pitch, but it's a reality.
I think that a lot of those things that you said, like, really could be um, transitioned into real time too. I agree with you. I think that the messaging is not like you're doomed. It's you're going to have an exciting career and a meaningful career, and you have value, and you're going to be able to help people and save lives. And I think that you're right, and like the messaging is so important. But I also think that we can take almost that. Cautionary tale from the 80s and 90s and put it into real day, like tactical information of like, hey, let's focus on positive coping mechanisms rather than negative coping mechanisms. So, what are negative coping mechanisms? Well, drinking, of course, gambling. There's a ton of ones that I won't go over all of them, but we know those like tendencies, right? And so, what are healthy coping mechanisms? Well, let's do something active, physical fitness. Let's make sure that you have interests and hobbies outside of the career that are positive. And then for cars, how can we equip you with some more education for how to invest, how to spend your money in a good, positive way? Because we also know that overspending is also an unhealthy coping mechanism. It's an adrenaline rush, right? And so a lot of times when you're not super happy, you'll spend that money to kind of get that quick hit of dopamine of like, oh, this feels really good to have this thing. And then, of course, that fades, right? And so we start to see overspending. So, how can we equip you with those tools for better financial success? So, when you do retire, you can sit on that beach with, a mojito or pina colada, virgin, I don't know, whatever you want. And then home wellness, the importance of home wellness, and being able to have a healthy and strong home life. Does that mean that all divorce is going to be eliminated? No, but can we reduce the risk of that by, creating healthier relationships at home? Absolutely. So I think that it's still relevant, but I think you're right. The way you present it is really important to be more inspiring instead of like doom and gloom.
Yeah, a lot has changed. A lot has changed over the years, that's for sure. I mean, in the briefing room there were ashtrays and they were full. And
Yeah.
people would smoke during, during roll call. That was just the norm.
Yeah.
And and it's that would be unheard of now. Even if it was allowed, I mean, I know you can't smoke in public buildings and all that, but still unheard of. I might have one or two officers still that smoke, but they don't do it here. They don't do it in front of anybody.
Yeah.
But it's just that's not the norm. I mean, we literally have an old ashtray outside the door of the back of the PD from the olden days. It's not used, but it's just still there. I don't know. I think it's just more trouble to move because it's so heavy. But yeah, it's a fixture from a bygone age, and that's good, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right. I think you need to replace those negative habits with positive habits. There's a whole science into habit making, right? So we'll get
Yeah.
too much into that, but it is a fascinating field to study.
Yeah. Well, I would love if you could maybe, I know you kind of alluded to it earlier, but some of the things that you're doing organizationally to help support that and to create that longevity and to have the tools and resources so that they can thrive on and off the job. So are you able to share maybe some of those things that you guys are doing?
Sure. So let me see where I want to start. So training is a big part of it,
Yeah.
right? So part of our training covers some of the top, not just how to be a better police officer, but also what to do is related to being a police officer. It talks about sleep hygiene, talks about your nutrition. It talks about some finance stuff and budgeting and having a plan. And hey, this is what this benefit is. We get all these great benefits. Half the time, the officers and the employees don't know what they are, what's the benefit of them. This is, how they can use that as part of their financial plan. What's a financial plan? Some of them ask. So I have to go back to that.
Hmm.
Uh, so there's lots of opportunities there as far as just with that training component's a big part of it, where we give hundreds of hours of training. So it kind of starts there at the base level. We did Sigma Tactical Health. We did partner with them, and we offered that as a voluntary thing that our officers and our employees can go through. When they do the full blood work and then the full scan, they provide a nutritional debrief and then a finding of that, a finding of what all the tests kind of revealed. And that's for the employee and the officer. That is not for me. I don't get that information. The city doesn't get that information. It doesn't, and that's not, again, this is a medical thing. I want my officers to handle medical things and make the best adult decisions based on an informed conversation with their medical provider, right? That's not something the chief needs to get involved with. I just need to provide you the opportunity to do that. And what we found out by doing that, we had some folks that were had some pretty significant health things they need to address. Um, I don't know who, I don't know exactly what. I just know that I get an aggregate information at the end. They said we identified this many folks as having significant issues, and they're addressing them. And we provided them a route forward on how to address those things.
Yeah.
So that was really, I think that was real beneficial, and we continue to do that on follow-ups. We have a real strong peer support program. So as you're going through your day, you can talk about your day and talk about stuff that happened, maybe old trauma you have. Maybe you're not sleeping so well for a various reason. Maybe you're having an issue with a relationship. Maybe you have a partner that you think thought was great one, at the beginning of the deployment period, but now you can't stand them. And so there's that discussion to be had, and trying to make sure that we don't let internal relationships, disrupt what we're trying to do. So that's been very successful for us. We have a Bernese Mountain Doodle named Trip. And when they brought him to me, he was this big. Now he's the size of an area rug. And so the idea was pitched originally as a station dog. We like to have a station dog, uh, because people love dogs. Well, not everybody loved dogs. I came to find out. But I try to find a path to yes. When officers and employees come forth with an idea, um, the default answer for a lot of folks and other organizations is no. 'Cause no is easy, right? No is no, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Well, trying to find a path to yes, it takes a little more thinking, a little more give and take, and maybe you don't always get to where you want to go, but get somewhere kind of close, and did we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish? So what Trick did for us is that he's not a station dog; he's a service dog that we use for public engagement.
Mm.
But when he's not doing public engagement, he's here with the officers. So if an officer and employee is having a rough day, they can go hang out with Trip and pet Trip, and because Trip loves to get petted for sure. And he'll just lean on you until you pet him. So that's just the way he is. And he's a great dog. And a lot of people really enjoy just knowing he's here and seeing him. And he's a lot of fun. And he definitely brings down the stress in the room. Now, the funny part is I had to remind everybody to say hello to the employee who's always with Trip first and not go to the dog immediately because the employee is kind of feeling a little left out. So it's kind of rude. So, but I went drawn to the dog. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we also do, so we talk about CISM and GRIN and peer support. So this is such a big deal here. Like my deputy chief and I are going to an executive level training next week, as a matter of fact, put on by behind the Badge Foundation up in Redmond. And we're going to be up there for 3 days to learn, these skill sets for people at the command level. It's because I have a commander, I have lieutenants here, I've got a deputy chief, and who do they talk to, right? Because you can't gripe down, you have to gripe up. And sometimes it's a small pool of people, right? And plus, we have commanders and command teams from other law enforcement in the area. Who do they talk to when
Right.
it's not a mission-driven thing or a program or a project? It's just, man, how am I dealing with this? Or I had to deal with this really tough thing, and it really, you know, I'm going to look bad no matter what I do. And I'm like, yeah, you are. That's kind of the job, but let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have those skill sets. So at all levels of the organization, you have that support mechanism and that wellness component, right? Just something stupid, well, not stupid, but something little thing that I do is I bring in snacks every Wednesday morning. And I bring in healthy snacks and probably not so healthy snacks, but a little bit of both because people are people and they all like to get what they get. So
Yeah.
usually I bring in oranges and apples, and I'll bring in stuff, just regular old knickknacks and protein bars and different things, nuts and stuff. And but where I put it is I put it in records, right? Because records is kind of the forgotten people sometimes, and officers only go there when they need something. Well, I put the snacks in there so the records personnel gets first shot at it because cops always get food everywhere they go or they get thanked. Records folks usually get left out. So I put it in there, and then it also causes my officers to drift into records to get their snacks, and it forces them to have an encounter with the records personnel, which kind of leads to a more cohesive organization, and people don't feel left out. They kind of get in the know, they get to find out about their kids and all that kind of fun stuff. So there's a method to that madness as well. And then like the biggest thing we're doing is we're getting a brand new police building, which I not everybody can do. But it is a purpose-built police building with a purpose-built police training center. And like I said, we're in a facility. It was built in 1985 and it was designed for about 30 people. And that's probably stretching it. And I've got 100 people in this organization right now in that same space. And that's a problem. So got that identified, did the needs assessment. That was one of the big things the chief on the chief's to-do list when I got here from the city manager. Said, you got to make this happen. Okay. So we made it happen for a variety of different ways of getting funding, mostly from reserves, but a lot from other different pots of money. And so that building will come online in January of next year, and we'll be moved into that, and it'll provide a completely new employee experience for my officers and my employees. Their parking will be secure within a secure perimeter, right? So they know nobody's going to come mess with their stuff in their car when they go to work. Uh, they're going to walk into a building through a nice direct path, go directly to a locker room that's actually right sized, with the right size locker with right lighting for them. Then they're going to come out if they can go put their stuff. There's a laundry for the officers. There's an in-house gym for the officers to either train before or after their shifts. We're still trying to work out the workout on duty thing, but we'll work through that. Um, then there's a ready line. Then the operational level is all designed for the officer, so they're not going here, there, and everywhere. It's all very streamlined, very linear, and very logical. Where you get your body worn camera, where you get your MDC, where you get your taser, where you get your rifle, all those kind of things you're going to need to do your day. And then you walk right out to the ready line. The ready line's covered by part of the building because it rains here in Washington about half the year,
Mhm.
and that was really important to my officers that they were able to get into their cars without getting soaked. I don't think you're getting soaked, so we designed the station with that in mind. But the station is designed for growth too, because it's not, if I build it to today's standard within 10 years, it's designed to be a 30 to 40-year station because we have a lot of annexation area that we take in that. In addition to that, we have the gym. We have decompression rooms that are designed into the building, where if officers have a rough call and they just need to kind of unplug for a little bit, They can go to that decompression room and kind of get some quiet time. Next, I got a full-time lactation room as well for female employees, female officers. For that, so it's just designated for that sole purpose. So they're not having to use a broom closet or a bathroom or an office space or something like that. It's really very intentional how we design the building. There's a community space in the non-secure part of the building for the community to come and have community events. Um, it's just really put a lot of thought and effort into it on how this building will function best for our officers. Because you shouldn't have to fight when you're at work to make the building work for you. My
Yeah.
current building is currently held together by 40 plus pieces of evidence tape. Yeah, it's that bad. So it's like, come on. So so we have that. The training center gives just a complete a lot of opportunities for us right there. It's going to have a ballistic indoor range. It has a full-time defensive tactics room that's fully matted out. It has a full-time virtual reality room where we can run scenarios. Then it has an 80-person classroom. I can divide it into two 40-room classrooms. So, and that's apart from the main police building, so I can host regional training with disrupting operations, our daily operations. And I have enough room I can have students park securely as well. So a lot of thought went into that space. And most police, if they do move to a new building, it's usually a repurposed space or it's a joint space with a courthouse or a firehouse or something like that, in order to get the money going, right? We are very fortunate. We have a purposely built police station. We have a purposely built police training facility. And I got to tell you, that means a lot
Mm.
that we're not double booking. Like, for example, I had a recent, we're doing tours right now, kind of in its building phase. And we had one agency come in and they're like, wow, you guys can do defensive tactics training without the world watching you. We use a jujitsu gym. We got everyone in the world watching us through the windows, trying to work out. And we really don't want people to know our tactics. Why, don't train bad guys how to defeat us. So it provides that confidentiality, provides that private and that safe space because you don't know who's going to come into open to the public dojo while you're doing your training, who wants to cause problems. So it also provides that level of safety as well. So all those kind of things together really kind of create a fabric that we're trying to, at several levels of the organization, to create that wellness
Yeah.
and bring in all those things together.
I like that you said the fabric, like you're really trying to weave all of this into the fabric of who you are as an organization and how you move forward as an organization. And of course, I want to touch on a few things, but one thing that popped into my head while you were talking that I just thought was really interesting, you did not want to be the chief of police. You were thrown into this with 2 day notice of like, hey man, you're the guy, and you're like, what? Like, I don't know what to, not, I don't know what to do, but like, hey, like, I wasn't expecting this. And like, I maybe wasn't like, I wanted to be number two. Can I just stay there? And then now, like, look how much you've accomplished and all the things that you're doing. And it kind of was just like a full circle moment for me in my head where I was like, how cool. Like, the person who said you're the guy was right. You're the guy. And now you're doing all these incredible things organization. I know you have a team behind you that's also a part of this and a part of that creation, and you guys are doing this together. But a few things that you said.
Yeah,
Oh, go
I want
ahead.
to stress that I've got an awesome team. I've got
Yeah.
a great deputy chief,
Yep.
Bobby Hollis. He's fantastic. I've got a great group of commanders. I've got some great lieutenants coming up through the ranks. I've got a great supervisory team. I've got a great civilian supervisor. I mean, my executive assistant, oh my God, she keeps me going to where I need to go. So, I mean, I got to tell you, it's not just me.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like the figurehead sometimes. So,
Yeah.
really have a fantastic team that are always coming at me with great ideas and also that kind of that nagging voice like, Chief, how come we can't? How come we can't? Like, okay, let's see if we can.
Yep.
Right. So, and again, I have a supportive city manager and city government, which should not be undersold. So many organizations don't have the support of electeds where we really do here, which is again really helps towards officer wellness and creating that positive spirit. And the community really supports the police department. And that's one of the really humbling things about Lacey. Every day you're in uniform and you're out in the public, somebody comes up to you and says, "Thank you for your service."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that is
That's
just,
huge.
after 35 years, it still humbles me when I hear that.
Yeah. That's huge. And it's all interconnected. And you're right. I talk to so many police chiefs across the country that don't have the support of their community or don't have the support of city management. And it's really difficult, and that impacts wellness too. And so I'm so happy that you have a great team and a great community and a great supportive, city that's helping you guys through all of this. And you guys are operating together as a team, because it's huge. I think that impacts longevity, and a few things I wanted to say, kind of just touch on, but I wanted to also ask you a question. You have this mindset of training and the importance of training, but you also integrate wellness into your training and they go hand in hand. And not a lot of agencies see them as the same. I mean, obviously, you do different modalities and different topics and different things throughout that, but it's like wellness is on its own island and training is on another island. And my question to you is, how do you think you can kind of spread the message that wellness is a part of training and should be a focus just as some of your other training methods and modalities are?
So everything's connected, number one. So nothing's independent. So one of the things that I did as soon as I was here, all of our training has a training plan, and integral to every single training plan is an ethical component. And we don't just teach you how, we teach you why.
Mm,
And so, because I don't want my officers to be at moral hazard when they're out in the field and applying techniques or tools or the law. And so, ethics is a big part of what we do. Same thing for wellness, right? So the wellness is literally woven through all of our training so that people are given the best opportunity for a successful outcome of whether it's the radio call, their tour of duty, their assignment, and their entire careers, right? So we want to make sure we hit, from the small all the way to the big. And we want to set people up for success.
yeah, I love that. My it's not my final question, but kind of a segue to that is, you said earlier that you always try to find a path to yes. And I would imagine that that takes a lot of out of the box thinking, and trying to figure out how you can accomplish these things. What advice would you give to other leaders who maybe are more in infancy stages, or maybe they're in a position where they don't really have the funding or they don't really have the support? How can they kind of think outside the box and still try to find that pathway to yes?
The way you accomplish non-traditional thinking is by tapping non-traditional sources.
Mm,
So early on in my career, I had the opportunity to take a class called SLI, Supervisory Leadership Institute. And it was built on this concept, right? It was all the reading material was not cop related. It had nothing to do with being a cop. It had to do with leadership concepts. And we read books like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, right? A children's book. We read the best book ever written, Man's Search for Meaning, part one. Don't read the logistics,
mhm.
the logotherapy part. That doesn't apply. But the first part where Viktor Frankl talks about surviving in the death camps during Nazi Germany and how people survived that experience and what they learned from that experience is so instructive on how to be a better person, let alone a better leader. So these type of training opportunities are awesome. Uh, I started hearing a lot about cryptocurrencies and things. So I went out and I got a certification in digital currencies and cryptocurrency, just to understand what everybody was talking about. And I knew it was going to eventually come back to law enforcement. And by doing that, I got exposed to a lot of different ways of thinking of things. Um, Myself, my deputy chief, we listen to a lot of different types of podcasts that aren't law enforcement related to get these different types of ideas. We read stuff from everything from Simon Sinek to Drucker and a bunch of other stuff, just unrelated. Um, and by doing that, you get these larger ideas. You get these, hey, that's kind of interesting. How do I apply that? Um, and get these different ideas on how to apply things. So, I mean, that's really where you get that non-traditional thought process. And you have to talk to folks outside of law enforcement. Now, don't get me wrong, I talked to Rod Covey a lot when I started being a chief, and he taught me a bunch of stuff. And he's a legend here as far as chiefs in the state of Washington, and he was a great mentor. So you got to have that. That's kind of your foundation. But you got to make sure you branch out beyond that and incorporate these other ideas. And so you don't get so lockstep like, oh, no, this is the way we've always done it. And that's why we were told we got to do it. And that's the way the budget's designed. Well, let's redesign the budget. Let's
Yeah.
fix that. Let's look at that constraint. Is it really a constraint, or is that something that someone just decided? And now we've just been kind of living with it. So let's kind of look at how do we get to here. And that's where your good, cynical, sarcastic, been here forever sergeants are really your godsend. It's
Mm.
like, hey, how did we get to here? How did this process come this way? And trust me, that cynical sergeant will be happy to tell you, right? Because they fed up with it too. And I love it. I love a cynical sergeant. I do, right? Because they're a wealth of knowledge and they see everything. Because I was one. I got to tell you, 17 years as a sergeant, best job in the department, and you get to know everything.
Mm.
And I really count on my sergeant corps.
Thank you. Last question. We're reaching the end. What words of wisdom would you give to someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that's helped you along the way.
Let's see. Uh, you're getting into a career for service. This is a service delivery career, and you're serving the community. Make sure it's a community that you want to provide service to. If you're coming into this job just for a paycheck and you don't care what community it is, you may not be getting into the right profession
Mm.
because they're going to ask for sacrifices that if you're only here for the money, you're not going to be able to deliver, and you're going to disappoint yourself and the person asking you to do the job or the mission. So understand you're there for the right reasons, not for the paycheck. The paychecks, you're going to get a steady income. It's a great career. Make sure you use that money responsibly and with an eye towards the future. And that's you really got to start. So one of my great thoughts that I didn't think of, but I learned along the way is, you begin with the ending in mind. Where do I want to be at the end of my career? And what do I want that to look like? Do I want to be a healthy person, well adjusted, with good relationships, lots of options, lots of interests, or am I going to be just RoboCop? Hey, I pulled my radio car around and I did my job and I'm depressed and I'm miserable and people don't like to be around me because I'm negative and I got all these medical issues because I don't take care of myself. And, no, you don't want to do that. No one gets into this job thinking that's who they want to be.
Right.
We turn ourselves into that because we don't take advantage of these other opportunities. And as you go along in your job, right, not to the beginning, now you're in the middle, you have a duty to your fellow officers, right? Don't let them become the negative voice in the room. And when they do, you have to, hey, brother, come on. This ain't so bad, right? We have to go out there and chase crooks all day. This is a pretty good deal, right? People actually like us. This is a good thing, right? You could have been a firefighter, but this is more fun. Just saying.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for your
Sure.
time and coming on here. And thank you for your insights and all the things that you're doing organizationally and within your community. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time, appreciate what you do, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.